right, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:01 PM. And we'll start with roll call.
Mary Ann Banks,
Here.
Howie Drosda,
Here.
Ian Hurley,
Here.
Pat King,
Here.
Tom Langston, Amanda Rost,
Here.
Michelle Barnell,
Here.
JJ Zanetti.
Here.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with the meeting minutes from last meeting on May 21st. They're in your packet. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
A second? A second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Moving on to citizens' comments, there does not appear to be anybody online and there is no one in person, so we'll breeze through that. Chairperson report, don't have a report. Commission liaison report, it does not appear our commissioner is here. Staff liaison report.
I got one in your packet, just some of the quick highlights in there that are noteworthy. The street tree evaluation, which was a recommendation from previous board for funding that was funded this year. Got 2 RFPs back from Davey Tree and Wicos Ecology. And we conducted 2 interviews with them, kind of still kicking around best options, but we'll be presenting to commission for hopefully one of the 2 proposals to move forward. And that's a all-encompassing look at how we manage our street tree program at this time. So hopes to get out of that is suggestions, evaluations. The good thing is we're well above other communities as far as having GIS mapping of all those trees, all 12,000 some street trees. So that takes a lot of work out of the survey end of it. You hate to pay for survey time. So luckily we have that in place. So we'll let you know when we have any kind of motion on that. Your CIP items and list, we're working on that from a staff end. Those are due Friday homework, call that. Over at Bird, removed a bunch of storm damage this past month and overhead paths, stuff like that. Was able to get that crew over to Twin Hills as well. Conservancy gave me a great map of a bunch of dangers through there, so I didn't even have to go out there to walk it. Beautiful map, the tree guys loved it. They commented that we are very well prepared customers. Over at Highland Terrace, the small park going up the hill off of Connor, we got all the sidewalks in to check off that Parks Master Plan box of connectivity, accessibility. So we now have a concrete actual path that takes you back to the court. You want to go to the court, we have a hard ramp into the playground, which that surface was just redone. Landed the picnic table on a nice pad, just kind of really cleaned that park up pretty good. And that also got the new park ID sign. So when you drive by there, it's kind of another kind of all-in-one package that we got knocked out there. Guys are over on Rockwood right now, continuing that kind of handrail to separate that upper terrace from the lower one. Big one, North Meadowcroft. That contractor mobilized last Monday, Done Right Construction. All they do is court and community fencing, striping, nets. I mean, this is like every day for them. So it's nice to have a kind of a niche contractor in there. They clear cut all of those pines that were kind of at end of life behind the courts. That'll all be nice lawn maintained. We can, look at future plannings down the road, but we just cleaned the site up initially. Right now, we did accept alternates for a shade structure over the pickleball waiting area. There'll also be a concrete pad in there. We'll get a couple benches in. Right now, it's lawn furniture, a wooden chair, things from people's houses. So I'm gonna politely move them off to the side with a note of, you got a couple days to get these out of here and then they'll be somewhere else. So that'll be neat to have, one of the alternates added onto that project. So their estimated completion, I believe, is 60 days. They're kind of drop dead as when school starts. Obviously, they need that court back for recess. The court coating alternate was also accepted, so that'll have a nice color palette added to it rather than just a plain black asphalt court. So that'll be something nice over there. Nice glass fixed bison backboards, not kind of just the metal ones that are thrown up and on kind of all the other parklets. So we see a lot of basketball use there. So I think the funding was used well to, complement how much it's used over there. So over at the fields this week, kind of rushing to get all the irrigation systems up and going. We tend to have issues down at Bird. It's just kind of the setup that we have there. I'll be putting an operating budget request in to update that sprinkler system down there. Right now, it's a series of 6 literal pucks, little computers that sit down in a box. If you get too much groundwater, it fries it, and then one's going off when a game's starting. It's a mess. It has all happened before. Even sprinklers coming up during the Boy Scout father sleepover. That happened. That's really it. We got a lot of the bottle fillers in. Over at the ball fields, by the batting cages, middle field, Williamsburg fountain got put in. That one was hanging out there. Basketball courts got one up at Main Park. And I think guys were finishing a pad over by the playground area because that's a kind of natural stone area. So we had to kind of clean things up a little bit to get that one in nicely. Last remaining ones will be over at the shelter. Bird Soccer got one put in. That was a quick one. We already had everything ready, pad, everything like that. These last two are just a little more in-depth in terms of prepping the area as opposed to the little brick structures that were there. So we're wrapping up some of that, and then we'll get into some of the remaining projects that we have funding for this year. Will be the next phase of signage, looking at secondary ID signs for the large parks that we just stuck one in. People are probably like, that's not the only way in there. So we'll look at those big secondary entrances, especially Twin Hills as a, kind of 2 big ends of it. And then we'll tag on some wayfinding as well. We were going to allocate some funding to use professional services for that. I think it's within our wheelhouse to do. So rather than spend money on more design work, we're gonna spend money on more signs and get more things done. I don't think it's too hard. If I screw that up, let me know, but I think arrows and where things are, I think I got that. We'll be good. That is it. Let me know if you see anything, as always.
Is Brafferton Field, does that need overseeded again?
That
Or
needs a
the
lot of
new
work. The infield arc has settled, and all this, you're down there.
Yeah. It got used, it was very well used in the spring, and it's been
Yeah.
a very wet spring, so I wasn't sure what condition it sort of ended in.
Yes, and the tough part with Brafferton is that the non-irrigated fields, when you open them up and you core aerate, the cultural practices that you want to do to help the field without the rain and consistent water, it can't hurt it, but it almost can be a waste of time if you don't time out weather-wise. So,
Right. With all the rain we've had, I was hoping that we
yes,
could get something in there. I don't know if
Yes,
that's
and
gonna continue or not.
it'll continue, yeah. Yeah, we'll be down there for maintenance, but there's still other things we can do to not disrupt the soil, to let the whole thing dry out like a sponge.
Right.
We can slice seed, we can do different things to.
I can't remember who has it in the summer, but I don't think anybody's using it.
There's not a lot of use on it this summer.
It's not, because I think MLSA soccer probably has it, and I think they have other fields to use, so I don't think they will be.
I've seen a lot of it as almost like a backup time slot someone grabs. That
Right.
kind of has been my perception
Right,
of
I
the
don't,
use.
so I think it could have a little, at least if nothing else, a resting period.
Yeah, that alone is huge.
Yeah.
That alone is huge, just not having the traffic on it.
Yeah,
But,
okay, great.
no,
I know
we'll-
just because a lot of that was new grass, but if we can, it's gonna need a little extra care
Yes,
probably.
it does. Yes, it does, and we will do that.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know if you got something.
That's the one where the proposed work is, right?
Brafferton?
Right.
It's one of them. I mean, it's one of the places
Yeah.
that could be,
At the bottom of the street?
yeah, well, at the end of the street. Parking is a real issue there.
That's where the sport stuff will be?
And then there's already a sport court next to the field.
That's where the new work will happen?
It could, I mean, it's
Maybe,
one of the
that's what
proposed
proposed,
things,
yeah.
yeah.
That'll be
The
included in the.
resolving the parking issues there is the biggest thing, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of everybody ends up parking on the street in front of all of those houses.
Yeah.
And it's a dead-end street, so it's not easy to get in and out of
Yeah.
there. But I know soccer and lacrosse used it in the spring, and it was belovedly used, I would say, like, well used, but also like needed and appreciated that was now a big rectangle. I think they got a lot more use out of the field because it was the first season, it was not
Nice.
a sort of not really used diamond field.
Cool.
So it was really appreciated, I think, for both those organizations, used it a lot. Okay, I assume David does not have a report, or did he pass
No.
anything on to you? Okay. All right, then we will move on to subcommittee reports. Starting with the Arboretum Subcommittee, do you guys have anything?
No, nothing to report yet.
Trail Connectivity and Mapping Subcommittee. Anything there?
I can talk on it a little bit if you want. We met one more time 3 weeks ago, maybe
2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago. The goal was to get this in either the CIP or operating as a service level. It's a priority that you all have ranked, so that helps as well, because that language goes into all the blurbs that commission and manager read through to determine what they want to do. We identified primary trail segments, Twin Hills, Rob Hollow, and Bird. My suggestion was to sort of start with ones closer to the road, the major trailheads. Maybe stick with one primary construction, see how far that length gets you. And what I mean by that is either, is it gonna be an aggregate trail? Is it gonna be a natural surface trail that's just regraded and redone properly? So we had some good conversations on that, and I got enough info to kind of get unit prices on that, which is how I'm gonna do it. And we'll probably stay below the CIP threshold, because this is gonna be a niche type thing for, as far as contracts go. So I really think it will be much better kind of managed and implemented if we keep it a little bit lower dollar value, see how much we can get. We can always add on feed a trail. But starting at those primary routes where everyone's in and out, that kind of shows the community that you realize they're there, and that this is a hot item. So I think it was a good meeting, and we seem to be pretty productive each time, so I'm sure there'll be another one before the next board meeting.
All right, then we will move on to old business. The first one is the Youth Sports Organization Oversight Umbrella Organization. I don't think there's really anything to report on that. The second one is the proposal to rename Middlefield. And I think Tom would have the update on that, and he is not here. So I think they're still in the process of polling, getting names and, or signatures, I think is where they are on that.
I have a quick question. Help me remember. There's a fee for that, right? Like a municipality puts a fee on that, right? Isn't that what
I
they
think
said?
there's some dollar
I
amount.
think there is a
tied.
dollar
remember what it
amount, and
was?
then I don't remember what it is, and then so many signatures. I mean, there's definitely a long process
Because the
to
Dixons
get it
did it, the
done.
Seymours did it,
Right,
and now
yeah,
Flaherty and maybe another one,
yeah,
Frank Gill for the
right,
the ice rink.
right.
But I couldn't remember the dollar amount. You don't remember, do
I
you?
don't remember. No, and I just know that it's a pretty long process, like there's a long step of
Tom
different
probably
things you
would
do.
know,
Yeah,
right?
Tom would know. If you want to reach out to him, he would definitely know. Because he's right in the thick of all that and knows, like, pretty detailed, I think, what has to happen, because he's trying to step through the process between, it's like the family buy-in, and then there's just so many different steps. Okay, the third item is a concept to combine a new recreation center with the new stadium. Anything going on?
I have something fun to show everybody. Thank you. So this is a conceptual illustration. I just won't go away. But if you look at the Parks and Rec Advisory Board handout in tonight's packet, this supports item number 2, which is, I guess, our, it's kind of like what we're supposed to do as a board or what they want us to do. And this supports the park master plan, main park master plan, main park recreation center. So this is a futuristic drawing of what a new structure could potentially look like. It's
Are
just
there sport courts on the roofs?
it could be. This is a conceptual. On the far right, I think the existing structure is still there. So that hasn't been touched. But this is basically tearing down the existing stands and the building underneath that support the stands, which is deteriorating and needs to be addressed within the next 2 to 3 years. This is a school district property, not a municipal property, but the idea would be, and we've talked about this, some kind of a joint partnership between the municipality who wants to do a new rec center expansion or upgrade, renovation at the main park. And the idea would be to combine the two and blow out that stadium, blow out that hillside, dig all that out. The stadium has to stay where it stays. There's no other place we're gonna put a stadium. It's not like we can, hey, let's go put one 8 miles away. It stays there, so it has to be addressed no matter what. Even if they don't do a combo project, it's gonna have to be addressed. But, you know, an illustration, you know, speaks 1,000 words. If you recall, a few months ago, I presented some renderings that showed the existing stands, the existing structure, and potentially a new structure, and it showed, you remember, it showed school buses going underneath.
Yeah, it
There's
was,
a lot of space under there. Somebody asked me, how much space is there? Could they really do that? I said, there's a lot of space under
Yeah,
there.
I know
Yeah.
they're looking for a lot of like things that we don't necessarily think about, but storage,
Right.
they have all the buses they leave outside
Right,
and all the other, there's a
Right.
lot of like
a ton of
maintenance
space.
type
Yeah.
stuff that needs to happen
Yeah.
in that space, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you were gonna say something?
I was gonna try to look on my phone for an aerial, but isn't the bus storage over here?
Sort of,
Yeah,
kind of, they
it's
just
up to
park
the
it.
right, they
park
just
it in
park it
that
to
Would
the
end
right.
zone.
would it make sense to pull into the, I mean, that
Yeah,
area and that
Yeah.
hillside there? Always
Perhaps.
look like an afterthought.
now this doesn't show, so the road that's going up to the stadium is Morgan Drive, just to be clear. And you know where the sand volleyball courts, you can see them on here. There's that road that goes up, that's called Stadium Drive. So Stadium Drive could move, could stay, it's really not shown on here, which is fine. It could stay, it could bump out and continue to drive up and around if they wanted to, or you could do something else with the buses. You don't need to have the buses inside. They're not inside now. It'd be nice to have them inside, but nice to have, not a must. But anyway, this is conceptual. Just to have people say, this would be a cool structure. I do think it has the potential to save the taxpayers and residents some millions of dollars.
Now, what happens
If
to
you
the
combine the
old,
two,
the old rec center and the ice rink?
I think you keep it.
the ice rink's gonna stay.
Yeah.
And maybe they do nothing with it. This doesn't address anything with the existing rec center.
Because if it does stay, it needs a new roof, there's some things that have to happen there.
Yeah,
Um,
so they address that.
Yeah.
Pool, somebody said, what about
Which
the pool?
we've been putting off
Keep the
until
pool
they've
there.
decided, yeah.
But I also think that in the Parks Master Plan, Phil, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, one of the concepts for renovating the existing rec center in its existing location would be to cut up into the hillside a little bit.
That was one of the big dollar ones, yeah.
So there's some disruption there into the main park. So this avoids all that. I like to, keep the main park natural habitat. And the beauty, don't touch that. But anyway, this is just a what could be. So what next? There's really nothing else next. The commissioners, there's a couple commissioners that support the idea of at least looking at it, discussing it, which is great. The school district doesn't seem to be compelled to engage at this point. From what I understand, there could be other conversations happening that I'm not aware of, which would be great. I just don't know that that's happening. They did go through a new, the facilities director retired, so there's a new guy up there.
Oh, I didn't know that, Jeff Kaiser retired.
Rick Marciniak?
Oh,
Jeff took Rick's
Jeff took it.
position.
Jeff
Yeah.
took Rick's position, so Jeff's position is open. Or did somebody else
What was
take
Jeff
that?
before?
I thought he was the,
Rick was the director.
Rick was the director of facilities. I don't know what Jeff
I don't know if
did.
Jeff was just the facilities manager or maybe.
okay,
or
that
something.
maybe, I don't know the exact titles.
What are some of the additional wants?
That's what I
know
keep coming back to
for-
the wish list. I would love to
Yeah.
hear everybody's wish
The
list.
rec center, if you were to renovate that, change that, whatever, what do they want? More parking, more event space? Like, what are some of the things that have come up?
I think they're looking for some additional capacity or to swizzle some of the existing design and add some more rooms. I don't know that they're adding basketball courts or
Well,
anything
well, I mean,
inside.
It it's
mean,
on their
I think
wish
they-
list, so if you go back to all the surveys they did with the township, I think the top things were event space or like they have the few rooms at the rec center now for classes and things like that. That's one. Basketball courts is definitely one.
Indoor basketball.
Indoor basketball.
Add some capacity. They
Um,
definitely,
Also,
rental
exercise
space,
facilities.
Rental
Yeah,
space for
it's
parties
big.
are like
I would
with
think
those
that's
rooms.
big.
There was like
In a community.
exercise gyms.
An
Right.
exercise
Yeah,
gym, to
okay.
me, that's a little less compelling just because there's so many gyms all over the place.
Sure.
But
I
that's
think
part
that-
of it.
I think that as a, if you wanna kind of compete with like the USC
Right.
Center, they have a great
Yeah.
exercise
exercise
facility.
facility.
They have an
And
indoor track, it's
That was
great.
my next one. I think the indoor, if you were able to do a couple of basketball courts, even Peters Rec Center has above the two courts, a small walking, I think it's like an eighth of a mile or a 16th of a mile walking trail across
Yeah.
the top. So I think that's part of the wish list in terms of the township.
yeah, but to make it more,
And then if you go to
more
the school
capacity
district
for
side-
all these things is the,
Right.
right?
The
It would be
Sports,
more of a
rec,
community center.
meeting places,
Yeah.
meeting
School
space.
district is on their end, they're looking, I think, at a lot of maintenance things and what they've talked about doing. Like we talked about buses, other maintenance equipment. If this long part that's not touched is the visitors locker room. They have a ton of storage in there for all the sports organizations.
That has nothing to do with this, but
But that's what would need to be in here. It can't just be a rec center, it has to also be, it has to fill the needs of the school district and the they want in a rec center.
yeah, I mean,
Like
the
bus storage and band equipment and,
perhaps, there's
isn't
room
that
for bus
pretty-
storage in here.
do they
that-
have a?
Isn't it pretty minimal
The
right now?
last rendering
Yeah,
had
What
bus
did they-
storage.
What did they do with that older stadium right now? What is it used for besides?
Underneath, that's what I'm trying to
It's a
say, there's
maintenance-
there's
Maintenance and
maintenance
storage
stuff,
facility.
the visitors locker room, the
Yeah.
storage for all the sports equipment off-season. But also in terms of the school district, if you ask them what they need, I can tell you they're very short on locker room space. So that the home locker rooms are up in this building, but there is not, just knowing kids in sports, there are not enough locker rooms for every sport to have a locker room. It and that's gonna continue as I keep
The
adding more
visitors,
sports.
visitors locker room is in the existing structure on the
Correct.
far right, so that
So-
wouldn't change.
They would want, I would think, again, if you're adding together wish lists for a building that's a co-project, they would, if I had to guess, would want more locker rooms, maintenance, storage. But it's a question to ask
All
them.
doable,
Yeah,
it's
so,
all doable, there's a ton of space there.
yeah,
This is probably 20,000 square foot facility, maybe more, 20 to 30,000. I mean, we're talking 2 stories in addition to the rooftop, which the rooftop could or could not be used. Like, you can't see it on here, but on the other side would be the bleachers. You know, the bleachers that are facing the stadium. But the existing building that's there today, once did hold the buses, but it doesn't anymore. And there was a lot of, I think they still use it for maintenance and storage. So this, of course, would have to incorporate all that. That can't go away.
right. But they're also, I think, after the building, the new high school, I think that's what would be interesting to have the conversation with the school district. If they would engage, is what is their wish list? We know, we have a good idea of the wish list from the rec center part because they've gone through the studies and done study after study. So we know what the community wants, but I don't know exactly what the school district is lacking. But I think after, it's now, how many years has the new high school been open? I think they know, they would have a good handle on what they're missing.
But anything, let's be clear, anything that's put into this structure is more than they have today. School district.
Sure.
It would be more than they have, and they could have the ability to add things to it. Certainly the storage, the maintenance, utilizing the space that they have today, that would all certainly be incorporated into this, and then some. So, it's not gonna be less than what they have today, it'll be more than what they have today.
Sure.
That would be
I think
the
we're just
idea,
saying
but they can engage.
as a next step is can we try to put together, sort of that wish list item of what would be the, if money grew on trees and.
How do we generate interest in this, that the school district?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, how do you move
Illustrations,
forward? Yeah.
illustrations like this,
Yeah.
maybe could show what could be.
But if you couple that
I've
with,
tried
you
to
could
talk
get
to them
this,
a
that, and the other thing, then you're
Yeah.
adding to that. I think
Pictures and numbers.
pictures and
Yeah,
numbers
pictures
and.
I've tried to talk to them, I think the commissioners have tried to talk to them, we've put some preliminary napkin math in front of them, they don't have this, of course. But, this meeting, and we're of course focused on Parks and Rec, not the school district, so this is just a way to, again, if you're looking at the 2025 work plan, number 2, this addresses that, and it also, kills this other bird of helping the school with their stadium that has to be torn down and rebuilt.
All they're doing are replacing that side of the bleachers?
I don't know that they know what they're doing, because they know that they need to do something,
Yeah.
because it's sinking.
Yeah.
And so they have a structural issue, but they also have no money, so.
But yeah, that's
They,
what, that's
at the bare
plan
minimum, they
is.
have to redo what's there.
It
But
has to be torn down, they know that. It has to be torn out, completely torn out. And if
But
they
I-
put up something like this, maybe, maybe not. They could just go with the skinny plan of just putting up some steel bleachers and be done.
Yeah. Just the most
Be the
likely
bare minimum.
to happen.
yeah, I think
And,
that they,
That would be
I think they're gonna,
unfortunate.
my guess, I don't know what they're thinking, but, they, with the fiscal issues they're having, I think they will kick the can down the street as long as they can. Because they don't have the fun, they're still trying to get their brains
Yeah.
wrapped around the basics.
Which is the financial aspect of this is the partnership with the municipality to help address, I call it, create some cheap financing options for the school district. Whereas we can do a one big bond instead of 2 separate ones, and the school district has a not so great bond rating, the municipality does. But I do agree, they're gonna probably kick the can down the road until it becomes a crisis, and then it'll be unfortunate. But this takes 2 or 3 years, so 2 or 3 years is gonna come fast. If this has to be addressed in 2 or 3 years, this is the time to start talking about it. I think Commissioner Flynn had
It should
mentioned that.
definitely be part of the conversation. You have a structure that is falling, apart, and you have another structure, the rec center, that needs to, some work done.
Significant amount of work done also.
You should definitely look at it as an entire, project, or just look at what the options are. For each separate and then as just one structure.
I mean, if we're looking at a macro level to how to best optimize the tax base, the tax revenue for the community, municipality tax revenue, school district tax revenue, and how do we do that in a manner that optimizes our assets and fields and gyms and tennis courts and pickle courts and parks? That's really, how do we manage the assets in the most optimal way that saves the taxpayers money and to produce something pretty cool? USC just put in, an $8 million or $10 million ball field on Morton Road. They aren't stopping.
I think some of that, from what I understand, came from some outside funding.
They got a grant.
Yeah.
I'd like to know more about that.
I'm sure it's all
I know that's
public
probably a state grant, but
information,
yeah, I think I heard they got $4 or $5 million in grant money.
There's a lot of, they were having issues with flooding and everything, so I don't know the particulars of it, but.
After the field,
Well,
No,
it's
that's why they're doing it, that's why they're
It's
doing it.
the same idea as
It's
Ian
very
has
similar
had with
to
Bird
Mealy,
Park, if we
yeah.
could, Bird Park, they've talked about if we could probably get funding for fixing the stormwater
Oh.
issues, and then you would put a turf field on top of where you fix the stormwater issues.
That's what they've done in Morton.
Which is what they
Yeah.
did there, yeah. It's coming.
were there
kinda
fields
together.
there existing?
Oh, yeah,
I've
they had
never
a
been
lot
to
of grass
them.
fields.
Was
Yeah,
it
I grew
grass
up
Like
there.
soccer, like
Oh, yeah.
there was sports fields,
They did soccer and like
so they
Little
redid
League
it.
youth baseball.
Oh.
Yeah, they ripped up that whole
can't remember
site.
it.
I mean, they did a ton of work over
And then they kept the grass fields at the rec center, correct? Those are
They
staying
haven't,
grass.
that's separate, that's completely,
But that's staying grass, but I feel like those are all lit, I think.
They're lit
I
and
feel
they're
like they
grass.
added lights, okay, or they,
Yeah.
I always had
but
lights.
yeah, they're like miles apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty far apart. But they definitely, from what I understand, they got some grant money, I don't know
Right, I heard that as well.
Yeah,
Kinda looks like their
But it's not grant
version
money
of.
for fields, it's grant money to fix water issues.
Right,
Maybe that's where the grant
Maybe
money
that's what it
comes in.
was.
Yeah.
Kinda looks like their version of McNeely, what McNeely could look like.
Right. Well, that's the idea, and I think if we continue to push some of these concepts, you know, maybe we can start to get open some ears and try to get people to think about that. I know I talked about McNeely, I was talking about it earlier today with a group of people. They didn't know it existed, and that so many people don't know that park is there.
Right. That's it, thanks.
Okay,
Good discussion, thanks.
all right, we'll move on to dog park research. Is there anything, updates with that?
No updates.
I don't
I think we just decided that that would be incorporated into McNeely if that were.
If that's
to come
it's a
to
feasible.
fruition.
Yeah. Okay, any other new business?
I think on the backs of the conversation we just had about Upper St. Clair getting grants, you know, if there's a grant that we think we should apply for, I'd be happy to do some drawings. We could back that up with any polling or whatever,
Right.
whatever that's involved with,
Now, I know,
writing.
Phil, you may know about this, I don't know, that there was a grant that we applied for McNeely when Mindy Rainey was on the commission, and they did not, we did not get it.
Correct.
What was the grant, what was it? Remind me what the details are, if you even know. The idea was to get, because you can't even like drive into the park. The idea was it would be form an entrance and just like some small parking to start to open up the fields, or not the fields, the walking trails. So the idea was if we could get people to know about the park and start to use the park
For Bird
Yeah.
Park?
for McNeely.
Oh.
And then people would start to see the, you know, if you could get people into the park and using the trails, then you start to open their minds to, oh, what else could this be? Let's envision
Yeah.
this, and then that starts to get whatever needs to happen to raise the money to do the park
Well, and I wonder if
open.
a combined effort might make a grant more successful too. Like if we're combining a school district with like a community center, does that actually make you more competitive? Because it's
Two
a
things.
collaboration between community and educational sector too.
And I
So-
think that it's all dependent on like what the grant is and what it's for and where it's coming from, and I don't know how, and I don't even know how Mindy found out about that or who in the township does that,
I
who
think we had
looks for
applied
those
for it
opportunities.
before at some
Okay.
point. I forget the exact feedback, but I don't think it was at a scale where they were interested in helping. I don't know if that meant it was just too minimal in terms of like, here's our great grant project, and then it's we just want to get in here.
We just wanna get started. And I think what I remember from Craig Grella's comments prior talking about McNeely is I think there's state money to redo some of that, I think the previous, I don't think, the state commissioner or the state representative said that there was money to be had there, but they are only looking to fund like fully fledged projects. They don't wanna give you, you know, 10,000 to open up the park. They'll help you get 10 million to do the park. Like, so it's kind of they don't want to do like little piecemeal things. They want to do the whole kit and caboodle. So I don't think we should be afraid of the large number to do McNeely or this other large project with the rec center and stadium, because there are grants, there is state funding, is private fundraising, there's all kinds of avenues to try to raise the money. I don't think you let the big number.
Was the
Scary.
grant she applied for McNeely?
Yeah, it was for McNeely.
Through DCNR, it was a DCNR grant. I forget the exact name of it, but
Yeah, but we did not get it, but that was out there to try to do that. But I don't know if there's anyone actively like looking for grants that could fit any of these, any of the projects that we
Yeah.
would like to see happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anyone out there that does that in the municipality at least, or the school district.
How motivated is the borough to do a community center or?
Then their
I know
plan, then the
there are a
parks
few
master plan.
Yeah.
options, right, like
I
A,
think so.
renovate.
I think they know that they know that it needs to happen. They've done all the research you could possibly do between the Marks Master Plan, and now we're waiting on a final version of just the main park plan, which would include the rec center. So once we see that, what the options are, I think there might be some more movement towards that. And again, talking about kicking the can down the street, the roof on the rec center has been,
that's been replaced.
that has
Last
been
year,
replaced,
yeah.
okay. So like they have some concrete issues. It seems like every year there's like bigger maintenance items that need to happen there that we haven't always addressed because they're not sure what they're gonna do with that building. So,
But they're gonna do something.
yeah,
They have it in the Parks Master Plan, and it's a 100-page document.
and it seems like if it's in the Parks Master Plan, it's an easier ask. I don't know, when you're putting in all these project lists and things we're working on, if it's in they continued, I think the commissioners refer back to that plan, so if it's in the plan, it has a good chance of being funded. It certainly seems like that from what they funded last year. They funded a good percentage of Parks and Rec items, I would say. And a lot of them are in the plan. I mean, I think they use that as support for any decisions they're making, so. I do feel like the tide has turned a little bit towards that, because I think in years past, that's not been the case. And I think the funding and the interest has shifted back to Parks and Rec stuff, where it kind of was neglected for a time there, I think. So, that's just my take on it from the time I've spent on the board. All right, any other new business? Okay, so I thought tonight would be quick. I didn't think we had too much to discuss.
Dog park?
All right, so the next meeting is next month, Wednesday, July 16th at 6 p.m. I think that's it. If nobody has any other announcements, we will go ahead and adjourn at 6:37. Now, the work plan we approved last time, right?
Yeah, those are,
It was just in here.
I should have said that. The two other documents you have in your packet are just for reference on
The work plan where
final
we,
of our last meeting.
right.
I should have just printed out one page that says, Tom, you're the backup chair again.
I don't know that I don't know that I've talked to him. I
reordered
thought I
them,
would
and
see
this
him
is
at
the final
graduation. I
order?
didn't.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not see that.
We're not in order, but what we thought was preferential. Yeah. Cool,
All right.
sweet. World record.